I'm Dr. Morris. I am a professor of philosophy here at Collegiate College, and I am also the coordinator of Gen 100. So much for the introduction. Today we're going to talk about Augustine's Confessions. You have an exam coming up next week on the text, and I'm here to give you some general overview of Augustine's worldview. The purpose of Gen 100 is to look at different ways in which cultures have conceived of self and society, and then, in light of that, what it means to be a responsible self. And we chose Augustine's Confessions because it provides a look at a Christian worldview, but one that is perhaps less familiar to students than the ones that they perhaps share nowadays. This is a late antique 4th century Roman, largely worldview and type of Christianity. But one of the things that is going to be, should I say, running as a thread through general education now, this is something fairly new, are three basic questions. An ontological question, what is real? An epistemological question, what can we know and how can we know it? And an ethical question, how should we live? What I want to do today is to look at Augustine's Confessions in the light of those three questions. What I've done is, for you, and handed out to everyone, is an outline of Augustine's ontology. Ontology is one of those words I remember the first time I heard as an undergraduate. I was a bit taken aback, but it's really not as bad as it sounds. It really is referring to being, what there is, a science or an analysis, an account of reality itself. And so I'm going to use this outline that I've given you. And I'm also going to make a lot of references to the text. So if you have your book of Confessions, I would suggest you get it out. If you have it, because I'll be reading a number of passages. If you don't have it, then just write down the passages that I refer to and be sure to look them up later. I hope by the end of this that you will have a good overview of Augustine's worldview in light of those three questions. I'm going to start with Book 1. And my apologies to my own students. I teach two sections of this, and of course they will have heard a number of the things that I consider to be important already, but I assume that repetition isn't a bad thing in case they have forgotten. It will help them out on their exam as well. Book 1, Chapter 1, Paragraph 1. Augustine introduces Confessions with an important programmatic statement that tells us something about his understanding of reality and also something about our place in it. He says, "Man is one of your creatures, Lord, and his instinct is to praise you. He bears about him the mark of death, the sign of his own sin, to remind him that you thwart the proud. But still, since he is part of your creation, he wishes to praise you. The thought of you stirs him so deeply that he cannot be content unless he praises you, because you made us for yourself, and our hearts find no peace until they rest in you." The first thing to note from that is that he makes a distinction between the creator and the creation. Fundamentally, this is a basic ontological divide. There is the divine, there is God, and there is the created order. Two different substances, two different types of things. And there's a hard line between them. What God is, we cannot be, and what we are, God is not, in terms of our essence or our substance. And in this, Augustine is reflecting Christianity and its divisions from the earliest times, and influenced heavily by Platonism. Plato wanted to distinguish between two basic realms, the realm of being and the realm of becoming. Being, the realm of forms, is characterized as eternal. It is immaterial, incorruptible. And this is the realm that for Christianity is occupied by God. They had two ways in which they wanted to talk about God, early Christian theologians. They wanted to take what was called the via negativa, or the negative way, in which they wanted to deny things about God. How do you speak of the infinite? What language can you use? And Augustine, in Book 1, the opening few chapters, is asking those questions. What does it mean to talk about God? How can we use language? And one of the ways Christians did that is by denying things of God, to say what God wasn't. And we find these throughout Augustine's text. God is uncreated, immaterial, unchanging, incapable of suffering, incorruptible. But in addition to that, Christians wanted to say things that were positive about God. They wanted to affirm something, even if it was analogously. And so they spoke of God, and you find these terms in Augustine's Confessions as well, that God is eternal, that God is good with a capital G, that God is truth with a capital T, that God is beauty and life. And Augustine capitalizes those. God is beauty itself. God is not beautiful, but God is the essence of beauty. God is goodness itself. Everything else is beautiful, true, or good by virtue of its relationship to God. God is being itself, says Augustine. And we can see that. Let's turn to Book 7. Book 7 is a heavily Platonist portion of the text. And I want to drag us through a couple of chapters of Book 7. But before I do that, actually, let me say something about the world of becoming. All things that exist, according to Augustine, were created by God from nothing. The world, the creation, was in a sense pulled out of non-being. And the world of humans, animals, plants, and material things exists in a hierarchical relationship to one another. They all exist, but they don't all exist in the same way. Some things are more real than others. Some things are more true than others, and so on. The material world generally is corruptible, changeable, temporal. It is good, it is true, it is beautiful. But it is so because of God, not because of what it is in itself.